this position over here is infinitely better than this position over here on this map. I would say honestly in most modes that's going to be the case, but especially given the circumstances of like your role in the team and the advantages that your team has over the other team. This is like a permanent off angle that the enemy team has to deal with, and they can't deal with it very well. And this goes back to understanding tower control on this map, is that they don't want to set up here to deal with you. Being here means that they can't stop the tower until the final checkpoint, which is basically a KO at that point. That's the only way, like dropping down from this far right side, and either dropping here, and like throwing a bunch of stuff at you. That's the only way that they actually have a decent job of like being able to properly push you. They want to be up here. So just being this thorn in their side on the other side while the tower's slowly getting into place is what you want to do. And if they ignore you, which they can't, you know, you have this open, you have this lane here to control snipe. And if anyone tries to get on top of snipe or tries to fight you, you're doing it in an open space and you're chilling because you outrange them significantly. If they send like their whole team at you and they start throwing specials at you, you just drop. It's okay. At that point, you know, if they send enough resources to stop you on the left side, that means that people should be getting in on the right side. But understanding the important parts of the map to control is really important. And this goes for basically all the modes. And once we've like broken into their base and we can just comfortably sit here until they have to use specials to deal with you. Because eventually they're going to get a Zuka, eventually they're going to get a bubble, they'll get a tri-strike. Like, your push gets significantly better if they waste their tri-strike getting you out of this position than you being over here with the rest of your team and them tri-striking you and the tower at the same time. This is a perfect spot where like you can support mid if someone gets through, you can watch people dropping from multiple locations, and you can control this snipe area. And that's like the biggest thing that we want to be doing in this kind of scenario. So instead of going for your Zipcaster here, that's what I'd rather you do. But you're able to distract the people on right, but this timing window isn't correct because the people on top right currently like can't do anything in this kind of spot. And then yeah, you end up going down. So like your push is going to stall. You might get checkpoint, but you're not really going to get anything past that unless someone has a wonder play. Despite challenge being a ranked mode, I think it'll be a very fun casual type or casual queue type experience. Yeah, no, I want to play those types of games. Like I want to race other people with Zipcasters. Like I'm a very competitive person, but for a game like Splatoon, I wish that there were more casual ways to play the game. But I used to play like Halo and stuff competitively, or like at least I took it seriously. But even in that game, like there were certain times where I'd want to be able to play with friends in a very, very casual sense. And some of that, they had ways for you to play golf modes in that game. They had ways for you to play like tag with other players in that game. You know, you can kind of just make up rules on your own, which you can do in Splatoon, but they had ways to actually structure a lot of that stuff. And in that game, you could use like vehicles and do a lot of like racing. And in that game, you could also like build out your own courses, kind of like Mario Maker in a way, but it was like 3D. But it gave you all the pieces and you put them together into a coherent map. And people would make like racetracks and everything, and there'd be a bunch of like obstacles, and you know, it was a very fun just environment with a lot of boost and ramps, and it was just very silly. And I think Splatoon could use a lot of that silliness, because I think there's a lot of people that really resonate with the aesthetic of Splatoon in the community, like on like social medias and stuff. However, they may not necessarily be interested in like, you know, sweating basically. They're very set on like how they want you to play their games, and they don't necessarily want to give those creative outlets. And that's why we have, you know, Turf War as the casual mode in Splatoon, even though Turf War is not a casual mode. It is very much a competitive mode. There's no real casual way to play this game outside of, you know, PBs. And doing silly stuff with your friends, which I know Vic made like a video playing like some silly games with I'm guessing like viewers and stuff. That was a lot of fun to watch. This team, I see a lot of paint, I see a lot of bombs, and they have a slosher to potentially go over ledges. So in certain spots when we're sitting, like if we're playing defense and we have to hold like this kind of ledge, or if we're sitting on top of our snipe, or like any kind of ledge, we have to be careful about their bomb spam, and we have to be careful about the slosher. Slosher also has decent range, but when we start looking at our team, we have a ton of range, so it's not going to be as problematic as if we were shooters playing against the slosher. So we have both Splatanas. Splatanas have a lot of range, and both of them do a wonderful job against short range shooters. So as long as you keep your distance, and as the Stamper player ourselves, one of the things I'm going to be looking for out of Luci is to really focus on keeping proper spacing. You know, like this lane here, taking fights up on this plot area, taking spots during the open areas in mid. There's a lot of opportunities where there's a lot of flat open surfaces, even up on this plat as well, on offense and defense. We can really take advantage of and leverage our increased ranges. So we want to make sure that we're able to do that. But when we're getting tower, especially off the first checkpoint, because the first checkpoint, it's prone to a lot of just stuff getting thrown at it. Splatana can sit over around this ledge and get a lot of paint. Like they can get Splatana shots and hit like all of this. They can get pretty deep, like into the snipe with shots over here. There's a little bit of a window when tower's traveling in this area specifically. If you have enough control as the attacking team, you want to be able to jump from the tower and cross over to this area. Because if you can hold down this area, they can't stop the tower until, you know, it's starting to push this way, and then the enemy team can set up over here. I think I pressed something. Hopefully I stopped pressing something. Let me go back a little bit. We'll let this play. Go out and then I'll make some comment. Okay. Alright. So this whole opening was really good. We just completely dominate as a Stamper. So any time that we're like fighting in mid, there's no reason for us not to take this kind of play. The one thing we have to be careful about is something like a slosher or something like the mini catching us off guard, like up on this ledge. Like we can definitely deal with them, but slosher, if they're like hiding in ink here, they can definitely like kind of jump forward at you and get 2 sloshes if you're not paying attention. So you have to really, you know, understand the positioning of the other team. But when you have these honest fights, and usually at the beginning of the match, especially against this kind of comp, they're going to be pushing in from this left side. And so you can use one of these channels as an opportunity to take those fights. So yeah, it's an example of, you know, the ability to camp ledges and being... They probably shouldn't have thrown their bubble. If against this kind of comp, this mini should definitely be on higher ground. Because when you're playing against a Stamper, you don't want to deal with these ledges that they can jump over and get a bunch of shots. You know, at certain points you have to fight for those ledges, but like you don't want to be right on top of the ledge, and you don't exactly know where the Stamper is landing. So this is awesome. So yeah, if we want to camp this ledge, that's fine. With the mini down, we'll see how this plays out. Alright, so we're able to get it at least to the first checkpoint. But after we get that initial pick, I would probably look to help bully and take this space with my team. In terms of timings, I think you get a couple of shots like you did over here, and then I would immediately like look to rotate and help get the rest of your team up in a spot that they're going to be more comfortable. But I think you understand that, and I think you're waiting until tower gets past, like, you know, once it gets to the first checkpoint and it's not sitting in this area, because tower is very dangerous in this very part of the push. So you're holding this area until it gets past there, and I think that's totally reasonable. But because you got rid of this, the mini before, there leaves you a timing window to be able to help push this advantage on the right side. I would like to see us bully with our range this side over here. Exactly like we're doing. I'd be even more aggressive than this, but this is fine. You're able to get up here with your special. Okay. I see it. Wait, that Zipcaster was clean. How did you get the pick? That's crazy. No, this is great. Nice. Yeah, now we can control this ledge. Okay, they're kind of running into you. The enemy team could probably play this a little bit better, and we may have to be a little bit more, like, they could be threatening us more with bombs and other paint, but, you know, you're finding your openings and you're able to capitalize, so I certainly cannot complain. Also, what is your build? You're getting Zipcasters so fast. One thing I will say with some of these Zipcasters is I feel like you're just using Zipcaster because your special is up. So like these picks are super sick, and like I like us moving forward here. We're able to constantly move. At this point, we just sit here. Like we sit here until we're close to, like, the tower is starting to push on the right side. Because what can they do? If you're sitting here, what do? They have to funnel everyone up here. And once they're up here, so this is where like Zipcaster and timings and stuff are important. The tower is currently here, and you Zipcastering in and everything, like you've put in so much value at this point. You've already infiltrated their base. Your teammates should be like jumping to you. Some of them should, and you know, I'm sure we'll get on tower in a second. But like we've opened up the game. This game is basically a KO at this point, like truly, based off of like the advantages that your comp has and you as a stamper. Like we just chill in this box until tower gets past the first checkpoint, past the second checkpoint, and it starts dropping down into the enemy team. At that point, this mini is probably going to sit on this grate. And like during that time, you're going to get pressured and stuff. And that's why you should at least have one or two other people moving forward and helping you. But I feel like Zipcaster doesn't dominate the space as much. And you've gotten so much value from your picks before that Zipcaster doesn't really give us the distraction that we need. You sitting in this spot and just shooting from long ranges and outranging the other team gives us the space that we need. So I'd rather us just sit here. And then once they start getting established up on this like ledge area and they're looking to start shooting at tower when it gets past the second checkpoint, that's when I want to see the Zipcaster. But using it before just because you have it, actually I think puts your team in more of a dangerous situation than it really needs to be. This position over here is infinitely better than this position over here on this map. I would say honestly in most modes that's going to be the case, but especially given the circumstances of like your role in the team and the advantages that your team has over the other team. This is like a permanent off angle that the enemy team has to deal with, and they can't deal with it very well. And this goes back to understanding power control on this map, is that they don't want to set up here to deal with you. Being here means that they can't stop the tower until the final checkpoint, which is basically a KO at that point. That's the only way, like dropping down from this far right side, and either dropping here, and like throwing a bunch of stuff at you. That's the only way that they actually have a decent job of like being able to properly push you. They want to be up here. So just being this thorn in their side on the other side while the tower's slowly getting into place is what you want to do. And if they ignore you, which they can't, you know, you have this lane here to control snipe. And if anyone tries to get on top of snipe or tries to fight you, you're doing it in an open space and you're chilling because you outrange them significantly. If they send like their whole team at you and they start throwing specials at you, you just drop. It's okay. At that point, you know, if they send enough resources to stop you on the left side, that means that people should be getting in on the right side. But understanding the important parts of the map to control is really important. And this goes for basically all the modes. And once we've like broken into their base and we can just comfortably sit here, like sit here until they have to use specials to deal with you. Because eventually they're going to get a Zuka, eventually they're going to get a bubble, they'll get a tri-strike. Like your push gets significantly better if they waste their tri-strike getting you out of this position than you being over here with the rest of your team and them tri-striking you and the tower at the same time. This is a perfect spot where like you can support mid if someone gets through, you can watch people dropping from multiple locations, and you can control this snipe area. And that's like the biggest thing that we want to be doing in this kind of scenario. So instead of going for your Zipcaster here, that's what I'd rather you do. But you're able to distract the people on right, but this timing window isn't correct because the people on top right currently like can't do anything in this kind of spot. And then yeah, you end up going down. So like your push is going to stall. You might get checkpoint, but you're not really going to get anything past that unless someone has a wonder play. Nice. Yeah, this is another scenario I think we just push left side at this point. Like we have Zipcaster ready and I think we use it once tower's in position, but again, I don't know if we get a ton of value out of this because tower isn't in a position. When tower's sitting in mid and like on first checkpoint and you Zipcaster onto this spot, like they can't do anything with the tower currently. Like you kind of just have to buy time. And Zipcaster is a way to buy time, but I would rather use the Zipcaster when the tower is putting a little bit more pressure on them. Personally, that's how I feel like you can get a lot of value out of it. Because, you know, if you use it at the times that you did, and it happened to us a couple of times, they're able to throw bombs and stuff like after the recall. And if you're immediately fighting them when tower's all the way up here, like they're kind of waiting anyways. So they're going to have a harder time, like you're going to have a harder time splatting them when tower's all the way over here because they're not under as much pressure. Zipcastering up here at this point is great because the tower is pressuring, you know, threatening the KO, and this person is looking for, you know, because your team is focusing in this area, the enemy team loses out and they only have a certain amount of space to really defend from. And I think, you know, most of your team can probably deal with like this main ramp area. You could support it as well, but, you know, really focusing on this area over here and, you know, finding the slosher that can do pretty well up there, I think is like probably the best thing that you can do here. And that's why I like this Zipcaster way more than some of the other Zipcasters that you did. Because there's actually a threat for them to have to deal with on top of you, you know, going Spider-Man all around their base. That was a very, very solid game. But I do think some of your priorities and some of your choices could be a little bit more optimal. IMO. There's spots where you're trying to force plays with your special when you already did the hard work. I'll just frame it as like how to KO. How do we actually win the game? So for this map, some of it's going to change depending on where the tower is, kind of throughout the push. But especially getting tower to the first checkpoint, holding off this area is really important. And by extension, which it's a little bit harder to do, but holding their snipe as well. As tower gets past the first checkpoint and as it starts getting to the second, we want to have pressure. You know, again, snipe control is really crucial, but also just keeping them away from this pillow and making them like back off. The other thing that I would mention is like Zipcaster timings. And it's really understanding like what are we actually trying to do with the Zipcaster? And it's not that we're necessarily going for picks, but we want to put the enemy team in an awkward spot. So if the mini is sitting on this grate, they've basically conceded the first two checkpoints for free. And they're waiting for tower to get past this second checkpoint so that they can actually play the game. So we don't need the Zipcaster until they're ready to play the game, you know? So there was times where we were just trying to force Zipcasters just as soon as we had it. And I want us to be a little bit more thoughtful about it. Sheesh. 21-2. Yeah, 8 Zipcasters seems kind of crazy. That might be too many Zipcasters. I usually don't say that for specials, but that might be too many Zipcasters.